Hello, Flute Examiner followers. Here we are with another interview. Um, this person has been a friend. I don't know how long we've known each other. I have to think back to that. But she's a wonderful musician, lots of really great pedagogical concepts and ideas, and just all around a fabulous person. Very energetic and very fired up about this topic. I can't wait to dig into this with her. Anesha Dexter, welcome.
Hello.
So first, Anisha, do me a favor. Just tell the followers a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Anesha Dexter. So I'm a classically trained flutist, obviously, and I play the modern and Baroque flutes. I got my doctorate at the University of Kansas, and then I also have second master's degree, which I got at the Royal Academy of Music on the Baroque flute. So yeah, uh, I'm a performing and teaching artist, I call myself, and I'm also a solopreneur, music coach and life coach is the path that I have chosen for myself. And yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, in this interview, ironically enough or funny enough, I came out of a little conversation we had at like 5 a.m. when we crossed paths in the airport like 2 years ago. Um, and when we were both exhausted and no coffee, I think it was after an NFA.
It was.
Or it might have been NAM, I can't remember.
It was in
But I'm glad this finally worked out and we could get something down. So um we're going to talk a lot about artistry and integrity and the details with that today. So let's dig into what you do. Many of us strive to be the best players we can be. We work on the technique, the tone, the interpretation. When you're preparing for a concert, or helping your students prepare, what are some of the focus points that you emphasize? Like, what do you dig into, and what do you emphasize with them is priority as they're preparing?
Well, I think obviously you have to have your fundamentals sorted. So you always keep your tone intact and all the basics of just flute playing, together. And then when they get a piece, you just have to, look at the composer, look at the basics, look at the hierarchy and structure of the piece, the roadmap, before you kind of dive in. Sometimes I'll just have them like play through a piece just to get the feel of it, and see where they're going to maybe struggle or not struggle, see if they like it, things of that nature. And then we just kind of go from there. It's really just kind of an organic thing. It's not something that I just have a formula for, because that's how music should be and art is just organic. So, once you kind of have the musical principles and things intact, that's just kind of already there in a sense. Or if it's not, then obviously you deal with those things. And then we just build from there.
And
I hope.
and how do you guide them or get them on a direction to come up with their own interpretation? Once all the basics, the foundation is there, the roadmap, they know they can play the piece proficiently. How do you help them develop that voice, that artistic voice that they want to have for that performance?
Well, I think it's built into the music, really. And that's why we have to take a step back. You are the instrumentalist and our medium. And so then you kind of just see what the composer has said and what he's instructing and guiding you to do. So I think the more you become familiar with that, then the more comfortable you will be with expressing what has been provided for you. Then you'll find your own voice. I don't think you should focus so much on yourself. Obviously, you're involved, but don't worry about that. I think you should focus more on the music and see what the music has to offer, and then what you can bring to the music and then present to the audience.
So it's really more about taking what the composer has given you and what you bring to the table and kind of melding it together to figure out what you want to say.
I think so. And then once you become familiar with it, then you kind of find your way, then you experiment and, does it go this way? Does it go that way? But there is a way. And I think when you just explore what you're trying to learn, then and then by exploring it, you become more comfortable with it, because you just do, you're breaking it down kind of. And then I think that's it. And then then the rest of everything else is there. You use what they have. I think that's the best and safest way to begin. And then obviously all the things that you can't kind of teach, that'll come more naturally once you get more involved and get into what you're doing if you like the piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's that's a big one too. So and especially with today's technology, I've been a professor as well, and you have students who you go and listen to lots of things, and it's been pretty standard for people to go and listen to recordings of famous people performing. Um, how do you work past just strict imitation and help your students and yourself explore personal interpretation and artistic integrity for the individual voice, not mimicking what they've heard?
So, as far as myself, I do what I just told you,
Yeah.
basically. As far as listening, I actually very rarely listen to recordings to learn music. I have before when it was something tricky like the Barriosa quiz, had to learn it really quick. And but that was more of just to kind of get, I don't know, that's the long story short. I don't
Yeah.
want to go off. But the moral of it is, like I was saying before, if you have the fundamentals and the principles of musical things already kind of there, you have more to work with. So the more you have that built up, dynamics, tone, phrasing, all the things that make up, music, the building blocks of music, then you have a greater arsenal to work with, so to speak. As far as listening to recordings, I don't oppose my students listening to recordings. But I often just teach them, I don't even suggest it. I just teach them the music and then they learn it on their own. I feel like it's a cop out to a certain degree because you really cheat yourself by relying on listening to how so and so plays it instead of just, how to read music. Because you can come back and play it like them, but why can't you figure it out for yourself how it goes and play it like you play it? You see, and then you can go back and listen to so and so and then decide on, oh, okay, I like what they've done here, or I don't like that. That's also how you're able to build up your, I guess, taste, so to speak. That's how you develop, is the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Develop your taste. That's one way of it. To know what you like, what you don't like, because if not, then you'll just walk around like you'll be a musical imposter, I call it. I came up with this term in
What's
2006. Yeah, we have angels of music and we have musical imposters, but never mind. But you don't want to be an imposter,
Yeah.
so it's better to be a first rate you at what level and whatever where you're playing than the second rate somebody else, because you can never be someone else. I don't care how great you play. And if you're playing just like them, that's
I
just weird.
I think that's a really wonderful statement that I think we all need to hear more is just be the best you can be. And musically as a person, I think it applies to a lot of things these days. So I think that's
Yeah,
something really important to take away from this. So, and a lot of this I refer to your students, but also like if I just from knowing you and talking to you, I know that the way you approach things is exactly how you approach it with your students. So, I'll probably just say students throughout here, just so you can generalize. But so, um, let's talk about informed performance perspective. What do you think the students, other than what's on the page and the printed music, what should they know about the composer, the time period, the history, any of that stuff? What is, I mean, obviously that depends on which period, which composer we're talking about, because
a lot to
some things were
unpack.
written, yeah, yeah, some
Yeah.
things were written for courtly music, and others were
Sure.
written, for other things. But like as far as that goes, what do you encourage your students, and what do you yourself do when you're researching and preparing a piece out off of the page of printed notes?
I'll pay for it. Um, it depends. It depends on my familiarity, I think, with it in terms of how deep I'll go. Um, but I think that a great and safe place to start, if you don't know the composer, even if you do, just because that's the thing when you're about to delve off into that uh journey or down that path, with that particular composer, you may need to refamiliarize yourself with him. So you may want to go a little deeper, see what works they have written and all the different genres and types of music that they've done. And I think that's helpful, know where they came from, maybe who they studied with, what instruments they played, things of that nature. And just, I don't know, just to get to know them because it does. uh I guess it can offer a little insight to their temperament, kind of like we know Bach was a very religious person. And then we know he wrote lots of religious music. But that's kind of just a quick example that I can kind of give you. Or we know like Messiaen, for example, I think he liked birds, you know, I think.
Yeah.
Um, um, or
Well, and
something.
within that too, it also just understanding, I think, a little bit of a little bit of the period and the type of music that was being written, like you said with Bach, versus somebody more contemporary. Those tempo markings can vary quite significantly,
Yeah.
modern versus historical. So, I mean, I think that falls into what you're saying is get to know the composer a little bit if you don't, or just refamiliarize yourself with it because,
And then,
you
like
know,
you said, depending on the time period, there's a lot of variables that you can consider, but they're all the same in the sense of who, what, when, where, why,
yeah, it's
kind of sort of.
you got to check all the boxes and answer all the questions for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
Um, so this came up a little bit in our prep for this interview about distortion of the composer's intent.
Mhm.
Where is that line? And I know this is like a really odd question, but where is the line between interpretation and distortion of what the composer intended? Like
Well,
how far is too far, or when should you start asking yourself, am I doing too much of my own interpretation and not paying attention to the page?
um, I'm giggling because I'm listening. I remember some people and some instructors in master classes and certain individuals performing music, and it got maybe a little bit, they do this kind of thing, like much. And so they may, and it's for lack of better words, but like, like, all right, don't be whoring around kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's okay. It's funny. It sticks. Some people
Yeah.
are just fighting, whatever. It's a joke,
Yeah.
you don't forget. So,
You know,
um,
some of the best things that were a little off color that I've had teachers say to me, I remember them.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah,
So,
like and again, it's kind of a wishy-washy question, but as far as like if the composer has a tempo marking or a composer has something specifically in the music, at what point it are the is the interpretation or the changes that someone may want to make, when does that go too far? And
right.
I know there are some modern composers that I've talked to who, this is what I wrote, this is what I want you to do, give or take 5 clicks, and in
Okay.
that, and they're very specific, versus, I'll play it 3 times as fast as it should go, like
Yeah.
where should you start going, am I making good decisions?
Right. I mean, uh, just got, bear with me. I didn't
No,
practice.
no, it's okay. I know it's a very situational thing too.
It is because it depends on the piece. It depends on the composer, which is the same thing. And like even a modern composer, like they do have it's not all stuff isn't just free game to just do what you want to do, So,
And I
like if
think what you just said right there, it's not free game to do whatever you want to do.
what
And
you
I
want to
think
do?
I think when we start talking about interpretation,
Yeah.
a lot of people think it is free game to do whatever you want to do. And that's where we come back to that artistic integrity that we're focusing
Yeah.
on. It's you need to bring you to the piece while still respecting the piece. And so I think that's tricky.
Well, it is, but the thing is, like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, and so it's not about you in a sense. It's just about you have a skill, whatever it is, and you're able to do whatever things. And so great, lucky you. Now you can come and see what the composer has to say and what can you do with what you have. You come together. So I think that's the thing. And a lot of people get in their egos and things and they feel that, oh, they can do this, they can do that. And some can and some do. But some people get away with it for different reasons that I don't have to say. And does that make them right? That doesn't make it good. I don't really care. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And so but you have to know the difference. And even in the Baroque times, and I don't want to get off into performance practice and stuff, but they talk about good taste. And it's true. It is all about good taste. But if you don't learn to develop, that, then you're not going to have it. So you're not going to know the difference. That's just like if you just eat food and it's bland, and but then if you've eaten certain foods and you know what's good, then you know what's good. So same thing musically. So as far as distorting, like in early music, for example, I feel like a lot of people play too fast. They play it too fast, like allegros and things, and modern musicians. But that's my taste. But that's that's what they like. That's what they like. But it's a bit quick for me a lot of times. And so sometimes that can be distorted. And that's just like with any period, though. If you just play too fast, it's just unnecessarily too fast. Some of it is meant to be if it's really virtuosic and you can do it and get away with it. But then how much is too much, like you said?
What
You
I've
can
always said to my students is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
play, and that's the point. So, and for practicing, you can push it because that's a technique, go too high, do it higher rather, and
Mhm.
just go too far. But then bring it back in. And that's
Yeah.
what you do. You find the boundaries. Go too slow, go too fast. Like that's also developing and deciding, what you like or what you can and can't do and playing within your means and what's good to you. Some people, there are pieces that may be set at a certain tempo, but maybe if you can take it under just a bit, it's still doable. And I would rather hear that, played beautifully and, great than you going too fast and just the music suffers as a result, you
Yeah.
know? Well, I've probably been guilty of it, but that's not the point, you know? So, but when one is learning though and developing, and that's when I was developing, I'm still developing, I'm always developing and learning. But that's the difference kind of like between distortion and I think when it's just annoying, it's just like, why? It's like, why
Yeah.
are you doing
Yeah, and I know myself, I've heard some performances like, wow, they really got incredible technique, but it was just too fast or too the articulations were too percussive that I just couldn't the musical taste or just because you can doesn't mean you should.
people don't know any better. So like
Yeah.
I'm not judging anyone, anybody out there. I'm not judgmental. And I'm not definitely think I have all the answers or whatever, but it's food for thought.
Yeah, it is something to
That's what it's about, being honest in your pursuit of music. And you can't be honest if you're trying to play like so and so and so and so. If you haven't figured out what you know how to do, want to do, and what you can do. And clearly like some people are really good imitators now
Mhm.
too. But I always I see right through it. I just can't. You may fool me for a while, but if it ain't real, I'm gonna sniff you out and sooner than later. But it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just a shame though, because how weird. It's just weird to me. It's like being an impersonator. Like, you get people get paid to be real impersonators out here,
Right.
and that's fine, but we know what we're getting. We know
Right.
that you're gonna be Elvis, and that's what we're paying for. But like, don't come in here trying to like dress up another kind of way and then like it's giving Elvis, anyway, sorry.
Well,
But
no,
yeah.
that's okay. And we talked a little bit just before we started the actual recording for the interview, about listening to and imitating, and I know like we talked for a few minutes just beforehand about I know I've listened to some different performers, some really well-known players, and I hear something that they do, and I really really love what they did with a phrase, and then I
Hmm.
take it to the practice room and I try to emulate or copy or figure out what they did because I really liked it, and it just does not work for me. And I think what part of what you're saying is understanding what your strengths are,
Yeah.
playing to those, bring them to the music, but also meeting the composer midway to respect what they've done, what they've created, so that it's really a partnership or a handshake between the composer and the performer, both being respectful of each other. Um, and like you said, a lot of our composers that we play, they're not with us, especially earlier Baroque stuff. And so you have to take what you know within the confines of the style and make it yours. And so I'm kind of summarizing a little bit here. Um, so as far as like, how important is this to you? I'm getting you fired up. That's what this is about.
I'm already fired up. I'm always fired about this. It's just like
Tell
just
me, tell me what the that integrity, that artistic integrity means to you in all of the stuff that you do.
I mean, that's just me. I mean, really, because I I don't well, really, it all goes deeper than just the page and the flute and all of that. Let's just start there. Oh, and that's no shade. I'm just saying, like, it's a deeper thing. It's a self thing of you know, just insecurity. Even people that are really good are still insecure and jealous. And so, but you have to be confident in yourself, and that's just the thing about it. I
I
mean,
think that's a big point that you just hit on is being the confident player to be able to make a decision. I'm going to play it this way because
yeah,
we can go back and change our minds. And
yeah,
2 years from now, that same piece may mean something completely different. We
right.
grow, we mature, we get different opinions of, like certain foods we didn't like when we were kids, but now you're an adult and you're like, oh, I'd really love that.
Mhm,
And so I think that goes with saying, and it's important, and I think this is partially, involved, and correct me if I'm wrong, with what you're saying is you're constantly, like you said, constantly developing and learning. And so the way you play something now may not be anywhere close to the way you play it in 10 years because of your own life perspective, your own interpretation, your own musical tastes.
mhm,
They change,
mhm,
but you still have to keep that integrity of this is what the composer wrote, and I need to have an
mhm,
opinion. And
mhm,
I think as we get older, I think sometimes our confidence builds,
mhm.
or we just suffer from imposter syndrome our entire lives and just
Don't get me wrong. You can. The thing about me though is like I was always just like go for it. I don't care if I'm crashing and burning nose. Like I'm probably never gonna play perfect, but that's not the goal, is it? But I'm gonna always try the best that I can. And then there's all kinds of variables and reasons and I've had to perform under all kinds of crazy circumstances that people can't even imagine. But I'm talking about like real traumatic kind of like stuff. And but whatever, the show must go on, and it
yeah,
did. And so and it's sad some of the times. I listen back on some recordings and I think about, dang, that's crazy that I had to play under this condition.
yeah.
And I remember one time playing and like I just zoned out. I messed up the bloody recording because it was really good. But I screwed it up because I was just that stressed out, like on a whole nother something. And I just held the note. I could just
Yeah,
cry and I'll talk about, but I'm just saying, like, I just lost, just so,
yeah.
but I came back together. But I just things like that. So, like, I'm not saying, being perfect and all that kind of stuff, but that's one thing I know I can sleep good because I believe I have good musical integrity and I'm honest. Am I playing good, bad, or ugly? And so what? Because, people may be perfect, but they may not be talking about nothing either. I don't want to
True.
hear it all. So
Yeah.
I'd rather hear bad, I mean, not bad, but like imperfection versus all the notes and
I
meaningless.
I had an anybody who had this same professor would know, and he's no longer with us, but I remember asking a professor about going to live concerts, and his comment was, I don't go to live concerts because I can't take the mistakes.
Oh,
And it was a very eye-opening situation for me because with alumni groups and groups I play with, if everybody shows up and plays their heart out every week and gets better, I don't care about intonation. Everybody's making music and it's an experience. And you're having a conversation and it's community and you're enjoying it. And people are having moments where they're just very feeling really good about themselves. And that's just, bringing it all together for me. But to hear
yeah,
somebody I don't like, I want to listen to a recording because I want it to always be the same way.
great.
That's a bit too much. I also, with that same concept in mind, I love listening to Broadway music. And so when you listen to that Broadway recording and then you see the touring cast and they sound different because they're
Mhm.
not the same people as the recording. For me, if I'm listening or I'm watching that live touring cast and I don't think about how they sound different, I'm just enjoying the show. That is my cue that they are doing a really great job performing. because I'm not thinking that they don't sound like that recording.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's kind of like a little bit of I'm trying to tie some of this stuff together for the listeners, and just so they understand that, like, it's not that you don't like that performance. It's just that you are comparing it to something that's unchanging because it's recorded. So
Exactly.
yeah, so it can have variations. So here, this is the salt in the wound a little bit. Talk to me about a piece that you struggled with, one that sticks out to you maybe more than the rest. And this is always a sad moment for all of us when we relive that process. But you tell me about a piece or a moment where you were working on something and you just struggled really, really hard to figure out how you wanted to play it. Is there one
Um,
that sticks out,
I
or a phrase or a moment within a piece that you just kind of like really treaded water? We're treading water trying to figure out what you wanted to do with it.
I'll give me a minute though.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Yeah.
No. Um, to be honest, that's not one of my weeks. That's kind of a strength of mine, if I'm honest.
Mhm.
But technical something, that's a different story. I have it, but like I'm like what? Like so no, there would probably be more something that than phrasing for me or something like that. But and that's just because I just fast and quick and just want to get it out. Just for practice habits at the time, just not knowing how to practice. Um, but I'm really trying to think really how I want a phrase to go. Let me think. Honestly, I don't really uh help me, Lord, because I really can't think of a phrase. And
Well, what about a moment where the technique prevented you from getting where you wanted to be on your interpretation?
I still get there. That's the
Taking a slight different angle on that one.
period. Yeah. I mean, right on time. That's the point. That's the point. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's real.
Yeah.
That's honest, and
Yeah.
it's over, and people still be happy.
Yeah.
So no. Oh gosh, who knows? I don't know. I
Okay,
don't know.
so
I
let's
know.
we'll go along the same lines,
Yeah.
but a little different. Is there a piece that you can think of where within a very short period of time, maybe you changed your opinion about your interpretation?
Ah,
Like
well, I can.
like within a year, you played the same piece a few times and you kind of changed it.
Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. No, not too much. I mean, I'm a strange one, I guess, at that. Like, you know how it just goes. That's how it goes to me, and
Yeah,
doesn't usually change so much.
but that's a
Let me
good thing to know, because for
let me.
for some people, we do. I have a handful of pieces that every time I play them, like the room may influence how maybe I played a little slower because of the
Oh,
echo,
well,
or
that's different.
like, but yeah,
Oh,
like, but I know I make some choices in my performances based on the room I'm in, and because
okay,
in order to convey my idea.
that's different though. That's just adjusting. That's modifying for environmental purposes, kind of
Well,
like.
that's good then. So that's a clarification that
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
not
an interpret.
interpretation.
Yeah,
I don't find it to be interpretive. I think that's just being technical. Not technical, but what's the word I'm looking for?
just adapting.
It's just adapting and modifying, just adjusting to the environment. That's normal.
So I think that's important. That's a good point. Like you just literally said, it's normal, and I think
Yeah,
normalizing that you do have some alterations you make for the environment, the stage, the
yeah,
the,
but
the
that's not
hall.
interpretive though. To me, I don't think about. I'm not going to change the
I like
whole.
that. I'm gonna stick with that because I like that. It's normal
Yeah.
to make some of those changes, and
Oh
that
yeah, of
doesn't
course.
change your opinion of the piece or your
Oh no,
voice.
no, no. But I can tell you this now. When I learned the barrier sequenza, and anybody that knows me probably shouldn't be saying this, but I don't care. I'm just not a fan of. I like early new music. I call it. And you know, um, So the Barrel Sequence, I had to learn that one. That's one of those ones. Fine. But I love it. You know what I mean? And so, but
Mhm.
when I learned it, obviously, you got to learn it.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, what you gonna do? And so, and I did listen to some recordings on that one, but to get a sense of it, I was familiar with it by hearing people perform it.
Hmm.
So, I can say I used that one, but it still was my own though. I can confidently say that. But I found one good recording though. I can't think of his name, Gnome something. I think it starts with a B. It's very good. And it was musical. And I'm like, now that's how it goes. Because a lot of times I hear beep, 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 it's just real that. But
Right.
his had an arcing shape and it was so good. And so that influenced me on how it could go as far as my approach. I mean, I probably would have done that eventually, but I don't know.
But
That did
it
help.
opened your eyes to possibilities.
Definitely open my eyes possibilities of that. And that's he's the only one I've heard play it in that capacity. And it's
It's
really
interesting when you hear somebody perform something and you go, ah, there's
yeah.
something there. And in our little pre-chat, I we mentioned in this, I told you I was gonna bring this up. I remember watching a video of Pink listening to YouTube stars perform her pieces, and she got to one, and the young lady was an incredible vocalist, and Pink literally said, ah, that's how that piece is supposed to go. I can just retire.
Right.
And so I think that having your eyes opened to possibilities, and in some cases, I know for me, I've heard somebody do something and it gave me more confidence to try other things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
We're taking someone's interpretation and going, that speaks to me. Now what
mm-hmm,
can I say?
mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes you just have to say it again,
yeah,
play it again, Sam, because I
yeah,
mean that's how it goes. You
yeah.
see what I mean?
It
Not
just
really
that,
more that needs to be said or done. That's how it goes. Simple.
and
You
I
know?
had a master's professor, and I remember her saying, I think we were talking about the partita, and I remember her saying, Keith knows how it goes. I know how it goes. So and so knows how it goes. And everybody knows how it goes. And the only way it goes is how you play it with respect to the music, as we said. But the interpretation is individual, and it should be. And I thought that was a very I've carried that with me since she said that. I remembered that in my mind, where she said basically we all have our own interpretation of the same piece, and we all have different opinions. Sometimes they're much stronger about one thing than the other, but it's part of your voice and what you're creating with that music. So I think that's the whole concept of artistic integrity, about being true to your own voice and saying something as the performer, whether it's technically perfect or it's as good as you can do it, but being confident and putting something out there, saying something with the piece of music. That that's what I get from our conversation with artistic integrity, is
Yeah.
just being true to yourself while still being respectful of the composer's printed notes.
I think you have to be true to the music first.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about it. Because then you just it's just safer that way. I mean, because that's why you have the music. If not, make up and play your own stuff. Then nobody can tell you nothing.
Yeah. It's a good
In
point.
there on the page, you do so like what's the point of it? Like it just doesn't make sense. He wrote it for you to bring it off of the page. That's his. So it's still and there's it's gonna, you know, it's like you say, you have food, but it's like, well, how can you season it up? How can you
Yeah.
make it taste? That's what you want. So I will never agree with the fact that, you do have your own interpretation, but there are boundaries. There are musical principles by which you have to build them on. And if you don't kind of know those things and hierarchy and stuff like that, it is very fundamental, very basic, but it's a lot of people are lacking such things.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Don't have to be
So
music gifted in the sense of but if you understand these things, then you'll be musical. I'm
that's
just
a
saying,
good
a
that's
person
a
that's
good
not so musical, quote unquote, as some
yeah.
people in the um can be if they understand that and know how to interpret that. That's what interpretation is, understanding the meter, what that means, and having a phrase, middle and end, and shaping and put those are the building blocks and the structures that you have to understand and know. I'm not saying you have to get all theoretical and the five to the one and the five. You don't have to even do all of that per se. But if you can just still understand There's a start, middle, and an end, and that's kind of the overall structure, big or small or however, and then what you can do within that bit. Take a phrase at a time, and then go to the next bit. And then, then it does have a form.
Yeah.
So if you just take some time out to get to know those things, because if you just say, well, everybody has their interpretation, you do, but doesn't make it a tasty one. And that's what you want. And it's no
Yes.
disrespect to you because why would you get mad when if there's music there? And if it's there to guide you and show you the way, then you'll find it if you search for it first. Just like in Baroque, for example, they said that like in Quant talks about playing the tune, just play the melody if you can't ornament. It's true. And so that's safer than not. So that's just like just do what's on the page at least first, you know, and then go from there.
Well, and you kind of just already segued into the last question I was going to ask you is, can you give the followers a few tidbits of advice that they can experiment as they prepare for their next piece or recital, and any pitfalls they may encounter, how to get them through. So if I were picking a piece for a recital, what would you tell me, order of operations, as it were? What do I do first and how do I progress with that? Just with the end result being that melding of both what's on the page and what I want to say.
Like I said, look at the music away from the flute. That's a good start. Notice the details, notice what's going on, the tempo, the meter. I think you should just do that first. See the tricky bits that you can just notice that like, oh, that may look a little something, you know. And then that's always a great place to start. And it depends on the piece, how hard it is and all the variables, but you still always just have a roadmap and look at it. And then like I said, even if you don't do that first, you can play through it first, like I mentioned earlier. If you're just looking at it kind of the same thing, and then obviously go back to the first thing that I just said, you know, just have a look and then like chunk it, separate the little spots that are hardest and then obviously you need to use the score. I didn't mention that earlier, but get the piano score out because it is if it's for flute and accompaniment, you need to know both parts because they are relevant, you know. And it's not just your flute part, and then the pianist comes in and he's going to play for you. You guys are going to collaborate and make the piece come together for flute and piano. So you need to know your parts and where you fit in and what's going on in the score. And then obviously just start at practicing bits, like I say, the phrasing and all those breaking down the structure. And then that's the long story short kind of thing. And then like build up the tempos and get real familiar with it first before you start listening to other recordings, so that you can get your own idea of it. Because during the struggle, that's when you like learn. That's when you figure out like, oh, first, do that first. Like you owe that to yourself. Like, geez, give yourself a chance.
I think that's really important. We need to
Yeah.
have the confidence to take that chance and give ourselves a chance to be the player or the musician that we can't be.
All right, quit thinking you don't know it. I mean, more than likely, if it's a new piece, yeah, you're wrong. You're right. It's like you don't know the piece. So like quit beating yourself up for nothing. So as you learn, you're gonna make mistakes and all those kinds of things because you don't know it yet. But learn it on your own. You know how to count, you know how to read music. You don't need to go listen to so and so while you're doing all that. Like why is this weird to me?
I
It
you know
is.
I love that while we're talking about the artistic integrity, some of the life coach came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
that's we all need that confidence boost.
That's how I teach, and I'm really good at it. And I'm not bragging. I get results, and I do because there is a way, and there's more than one way, but those are still the ways that'll lead you to the same thing. Just like how we know the body functions the same usually if you're healthy, but we're built differently. But the diaphragm, it all works the same. You
Yeah.
see, so that's how it goes, and there is a way. And then until you able to venture out on your own and are grown and develop, you do need a way to do something and go about it. Because if not, you're just going to be going around and meandering around. And that's one reason why I'm also passionate about it because of the struggle. I had to hustle out here and still. So to say the least, yeah, so I'm very particular about things because it's great to always be shown what to do. You know what I mean? Instead of having to figure everything out on your own. Because you I can do it a million and one ways, but like at the end of the day, can you just show me how to like and then like then I can, so that's why it works if you do it. My motto is like just do what I tell you to do, you'll be fine. And you will. So, and I wanted to say one thing about earlier about the recordings, just to make sure I was clear. I listen to flute recordings, but for enjoyment, like I say, and I've listened to some, like maybe really just a couple times or so, but I really just try to learn on my own, to be honest about it. And then when I go to concerts too, I've always been like this from young. I could always go to a concert and just listen. It's funny that you brought that up in the way that you did, like without being critical. Um, and even if someone's playing something for me at times and throughout the years, like, okay, how do you want me to listen? Because I'm listening a different way. Now, if
Mhm.
I'm listening because you want me to listen, I might notice some stuff because I notice it. But then if you're listening because you want me to give you feedback, then I'm going to be listening in a different sort of manner. So, but you should be able to go to a concert without judging. But on the pitch, though, now that's the one thing that just drives me. I ain't gonna lie. It just my whole thing be like, ugh. And I don't know. I'm not saying I'm always in tune, but I'm just saying like it's something about that though. It's like chalk on the board. Like,
Well, and
like,
and I think that's a good point too, is being able to listen for enjoyment versus knowing when to listen for being critical
yeah.
listening.
Yeah,
So
but you
yeah,
go to the concert for performance, like, and
yeah.
that's why people are feeling that way because they do it probably. They go to the concert to judge and be critical. So when they go on the
Mhm.
stage, they think people are doing the same thing, which some probably are. But
And it's
whatever.
and it's hard to let go of that idea that somebody's listening to you and passing judgment. It's hard to like, I know for several of my doctoral recitals, I found myself going into a zone where I was unaware of anything happening around me other than the music. And it was so freeing to be able to just play and not worry about what anyone else was thinking. And when you're playing for those doctoral committees, they're judging.
We're
But
always good.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
used to it, so
yeah, yeah.
whatever. And
But it's
everybody's not gonna like you. Everybody's gonna have something to say. I got something to say too, but at least I don't say
yeah. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
it.
Well, okay, so this has been a lot of fun. I love the energy. It's really been a great time talking with you, and you and I need to do this more often. Not recorded but just for fun to keep in touch. But so do you have any upcoming projects or concerts or things you want to let anybody know about?
I do have upcoming projects. So I have a business that I'm launching, and I'm going to be offering music and life coaching services. Um, and it's actually I have like a URL and all of that, but I'm still kind of sorting out the bits on it. So I was trying to figure out like, should I mention it yet or not? Because it's not quite ready to be, So
Well, and when it's set up, will you have a link off of like off of your page?
I will definitely have one off of my
Okay.
page. Stay tuned. It won't be very long. It's just me probably being like a perfectionist and all the things.
I
But
can't imagine.
you can't imagine. Oh. Me? No, not me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, no.
no, it's that, but no, really, it's not even that. It's just really it's me. It's a one woman show, and I got a lot going on with it. Ugh. And so I just got to sort out some bits, but you can still reach out anybody if you want to get a coaching, or flute lesson or whatever. I promise you, it'll be all gravy, baby.
And I can tell you just because like I said, I can't even remember how long. It's been a while that we met many years ago, but you've always been such a positive, fun, energetic person, and I think that's why it's always been such a pleasure when I see you. It's just I'm like, there she is. I haven't seen her in forever, and we just
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
a
start to
Mid-Atlantic. Mid-Atlantic, I think, is where we met.
that.
Flute
Yeah, maybe when I was doing registration stuff, maybe.
2009 or something. A long time.
Oh no, we're like fine wine. We get better with age. But that's the thing. So anybody who wants to reach out absolutely should, because I think you'll get a lot of really positive support and feedback from your teaching style, and just the way you kind of help to guide and nurture and grow. I think it's a really positive thing, and it would be very beneficial for anybody who's feels like they have imposter syndrome, feels like they just need to know that they're making the choices that are right. It is tricky, and I think I think as musicians we do tend to beat ourselves up because that's the way we've been trained and raised to do. It's got to be perfect, it's got to be exactly the same all the time, and that's a hard mold to break out of. And I think you're doing such a great job of really just being you and being the best you that you can, which is why I wanted to have you on for an interview. So thank you so much. And we'll have your bio and stuff will be in on the page. The video is going to go live this week, and it's been a pleasure to see you more than twice in 1 year, which is great. But please come back again in the future, and we'll revisit with you and see what you're up to. And yeah, so thank you again for submitting yourself for this interview, and it's been great. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much.